What's up everyone, Joseph here. In this video, we're going to take a look at the grammar that is on page 17 of the book. That's page 17 on unit 3 of the second book. Evaluations and comparisons. So, these evaluations and comparisons are used to give your opinions about how something or someone is. Here are some ways to do that. With evaluations with adjectives. You can use enough and to. Enough goes after the adjective. To goes before the adjective. So in this case, with the word enough, you can use enough after the adjective you are using, and to goes before the adjective you are using. Evaluations with adjectives. Let's see. Adjective plus enough. The house isn't big enough. You are saying that the house is smaller than you wish it would. That the house is not so big. The house isn't big enough. That room is comfortable enough for us. You are saying that is good for you in terms of comfortability. Is comfortable enough. Now, with to plus adjective, remember to goes before the adjective you are using. That apartment is too hot. That apartment is too hot. Or the backyard is too small. Here, you are saying that the heat in the apartment is very, very, very high. And you are saying here that the backyard is very small. It's an exaggeration of small, too small. As you can see, we are describing things here. We are describing, in this case, houses and apartments. Things related to houses. But you can use it to describe people as well as animals, and as well as ideas. For example, that idea is good enough, or that idea is too stupid. For example, that idea is too good. That person is too big. That person is too thin, not fat enough. That person is not intelligent enough. So you can use it with whatever you want. But since since this unit is about making changes to houses and apartments and like this, we are focusing on that. Remember that enough is similar to sufficient. They are synonyms. Also, to, remember that to is used to say that something is excessive, and often to describe a negative situation. The house is too big. It's in the opinion of the person that says that the house is very big for that person, and of course he thinks it's too big in a negative way. So it's often to describe a negative situation, not always, often. And evaluations now with nouns. You can use enough, and enough here goes before the noun. And you can use a combination with too. For example, too many, too much, too few, and too little. And in this case, it also goes before the noun. Um, so let's see some examples. Evaluations with enough plus noun. There aren't enough rooms in this apartment. You are saying that the amount of rooms is too few or very few. Not enough rooms. Not sufficient rooms. There is enough space in the kitchen. You are saying that the amount of space in the kitchen is good. It's good for you. Now let's see some examples with too. Too many, too much, too few, or too little, plus the noun. The house has too many tables in the, excuse me, oh, I made a mistake here. This house has too many tables. That's it. Okay, the house has too many tables. Simple. The house has too many tables in the kitchen, let's say, if we want to be as more specific. We have too little space in the garage. Space being an uncountable noun, we use too little. Again, it's a combination of too many, too much, too few, and too little. Too many, because tables is a countable noun. So, let's see comparisons with comparative adjectives. So here we are using comparative adjectives. Remember that we create comparative adjectives adding er at the end of the adjective. And some adjectives you need to double the last letter of some adjectives. Well, that's another topic. Well, if you want to learn more about how to make comparative adjectives, I'm gonna leave the video here. So, my house is bigger. My house is bigger than yours. Again, it's a comparative. You're making comparisons. My house is bigger than you're comparing. I'm comparing my house with your house. My house is bigger than Roger's apartment. Again, a comparison between my house and Roger's apartment. So remember that we can use comparative adjectives with that. Apartments are more expensive than houses. Another comparison, comparing apartments in general and houses in general. So, comparisons with more plus nouns. Let's check. A house has more rooms than an apartment. You're comparing a house and an apartment. And a house, you say the house normally has more rooms than an apartment. An apartment has more space than a house. Again, comparing apartment and a house. And you are saying that the apartment has more space than a house. Now, comparisons with as plus adjective plus as the description says here, is a comparison. My house isn't as big as an apartment. My house, what are you comparing my house and an apartment in general? My house isn't as big as an apartment. We use as plus adjective plus as, and we make the comparison based on the adjective in question. An apartment isn't as expensive as a house. Again, an apartment isn't as expensive as a house. Comparing an apartment and a house again. The pool is as expensive as a car. You here, with this comparison, with this type of comparison, we are saying here, for example, that is equal, as expensive as. The pool is equally expensive as a car. And here you are saying that it's not equally. It's not equal. So this comparison is based on equality. Like, this is not as big. So you are saying that my house it doesn't have as the size of a typical apartment. So you're comparing, you're saying that it's not equal. And here the same, you're saying apartment isn't as expensive as a house. That the the price of the apartment is not equal to houses. So and same with the pool here. This one is positive. I'm not using isn't. So you are saying that the amount of expensiveness in this case is equal. The pool is equally expensive as a car. Okay, now for comparisons with nouns. For countable nouns, we use as many. Countable noun as. This is for countable noun, of course, as many. Countable noun as. And again, it's a comparison of equality. A house doesn't have as many rooms as an apartment, meaning that a house, typical house, does not have as many rooms. The amount of rooms in a house is not equal to an apartment. Doesn't have as many rooms as an apartment. An apartment have just as many rooms as an apartment. Apartments just have the same amount of room as an apartment. Oh my God, I made a mistake. Let's say as a house. Too much work lately, guys. Apartments have just as many rooms as a house, or let's say as houses. Apartments have just as many rooms as houses. You're saying that apartments have the same amount of rooms as houses. And this word just is used to emphasize. It's not mandatory. It's just saying if you want to make a point, if you want to insist on that point, you use just. Apartment has just as many rooms as a house. So for uncountable nouns now, we use much, as much. We have seen this before. Many for countable and much for uncountable. As much, uncountable noun, as. Again, a comparison of equality. A house doesn't have as much privacy as a hotel, meaning that the house is not as private as the hotel. Doesn't have the same privacy. And this house doesn't have as much beauty as our house. Comparing two houses. This house doesn't have as much beauty as our house. This house is not so beautiful. Our house is more beautiful. That's what this sentence is saying. So this is the end of the video. I will see you on the next one.